Mrs. H. So I did listen to the tape, and I just had a question. So in the in that meeting, in that grievance meeting, you discussed partners and education, and but at the very end, you make a statement. I believe it was you that made the statement that says, "Take the parents out of it. Just look at the data." Can you explain what you meant by take the parents out of it?
I didn't hear the whole thing. We just got it Friday evening, and and I haven't heard it for over 2 years. So do you have any more context to that, like before that?
It was at the very end.
Should I play it?
You were speaking to. It was when you had thoughts, and Mr. Reasons asked, "Can I make a copy of that?" And you said, and the grievance said, "No, these are just thoughts that I have." One of them, the first thought was that you went over that there were 7 to 8. Wait, hang on. You described that the parent form for 7th and 8th grade lacks parental input, and then you said the lack of parent rights. You said there were a lack of parent rights. Can you explain why there were a lack of parent rights? Because if you, I guess my point is, or my question to you is, if a parent is opting in and having the right to opt in, how is that a lack of parent rights?
Okay. Based on that, I can answer. I'm sorry, I cannot address the tape without maybe hearing what was before and what was after, but I can answer this question, what my opinion would have been. This is not the grievant talking now, because you're asking me my opinion. I would have the right to know what my child was being taught, and since 6th grade didn't have anything, and then the other information out there was very much, it's legal, it's abstinence-based, and that type of thing, I would think as a right, I would have as a right as a parent. Well, I know I have the right under Texas law to direct their moral upbringing, and that's solely my and my husband's legal right. So if anything were to be taught in these lessons that were really of a moral nature, or anything that would undermine maybe our faith values or just what we want for health reasons, whatever it might be, whoever the parent is, I would say that that was a denial of rights, because it's not conveying, like I said earlier, maybe the red flags or exactly what's in it. It's like, hey, everything, nothing to worry about, we're good. And in fact, I'm hearing that even this year. People are telling their students, "Oh, it's fine. We teach this all the time. Just you don't want to skip out. You want to take this. Just tell your parents to sign this." And that's really the parent's choice, you know.
But also a parent's choice to sign it.
Yeah, but
I guess, you referenced on page 50, and you actually stated the Texas Family Code. You said parents alone obtain the right to direct the religious and moral direction of their children. And so to me, that's an individual code. Like, that is the code that Sandy Winkley has for her children, and that Mrs. H has for her children, and Mr. H have for their children.
Yes.
So I don't know how. Explain to me how, because what I'm hearing, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying, but what I'm hearing is that you want your individual code to be everyone's individual code.
I think that's kind of what's part of this issue, and that is that that's a really incorrect assumption that we're hearing a lot from various peoples, administrators and staff, that it's, well, you don't like, and we heard it here before 2 years ago, you don't like this curriculum, and you have the choice not to have it. Agreed. The problem is when parents aren't really told what's in it, which it's now better, but when, a lot better. But when we weren't really told, and it was, you couldn't get your hands on it. I mean, I even called, well, I don't want to go there. You can't know what you're agreeing to. Does that make sense? Like, you wouldn't sign like a house loan if you didn't know how much it was going to cost you. You'd want to have accurate data before signing it off.
Well, that's why I went to the meetings. I mean, I did. That's why I went to the meetings, and I understand. I mean, I'm following what you're
Right.
saying, but I want to ask you about. There were a couple of pages in here that kind of caught my eye, and one being page 15, I think it is. And so I was curious to know why the theology of the body definition was in there. And I mean, I know theology of the body. I was taught by Brian Butler. I'm very aware of what that program is. It's a Catholic-based program. I'm Catholic. And then you had the statistics of 33% of NEISD families. Were those statistics NEISD families, or were you saying, was that a national statistic, a San Antonio statistic? On page 15, and then your chart is page 47, I believe.
Okay. Well, part of maybe what you're referring to is not my data. That's the packet that was handed out at the Parent Researchers Seminar. That's where the theology of the body aspect came from. It was the complete handout from that talk, so that there was some context to, because that was predominantly given to Catholics or Christians or whoever wanted to come and hear that religious aspect. That wasn't really taught. That was part of a handout that I was given.
So, but that was part of the packet. The grievance, right? I mean, that was those were documents that were provided
as evidence of obtaining the information from this particular parent researcher's presentation. Those were the presentation handouts that accompanied that talk.
Okay.
As far as the second part of your question, I don't know if the grievant researched that. It's been, again, 2.5 years and found out what that percent was or where that came from. But when we're dealing with, our educators that we're supposed to be full partners with, no one anticipated it would have to get to this point, or that would have to go through the rigmarole that it has. It was let me sit down, let me pour out my heart to you, let me tell you why I'm concerned, let me show you the law, please look at the law, and nobody would. And so you have this nobody realizes when they do a grievance that they're going to be interrogated. And I love your questions. I'm just saying where it's getting nuanced to where you think you have to word everything perfectly. That's not what the grievance is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a constant renegotiation. The F&G policy says so, that at every level it's encouraged to try to work this out so it doesn't become a formal thing and become such a cost. So I appreciate you probing and asking, and I want you to keep doing that. I'm not trying to in any way be rude, but that's sort of my heart talking, is that parents we don't think of you as enemies, and we feel like when you don't want to hear, when we share something or want to share something, it's legal process. Shut it down.
No, I believe I am glad you're sharing. I'm just I'm concerned that there's not thought that there are other religions and values that families have outside of what the grievant is stating. And I personally, no, not personally. Okay, there's that. But and the reason I ask is, okay, they're on, you have some data. So I think this leads into this question. So it says the data is from Texas Values. Who is Texas
Page 45.
Values? What page, Mr.
Page 45.
45, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I know, it's a lot. Yes, it's, yes, page 45. So Texas, so this was not part of your, well, the grievant included it in his package, and I just wanted to know texasvalues.org. I looked them up. I was going to ask, I looked them up. It's a political organization, I think, out of Austin is what I read. And I just wanted to know, is the grievance associated with this organization?
Well, that wouldn't be really relevant, would it?
Well, the only reason I ask is that I wondered why he looked for data, and you were speaking about data and how important data was, and to gather data from vetted organizations, and this is a political organization. I wasn't sure of the connection.
This is part of the presentation handed out at that parent meeting that he saw online, and there was a link to print out all the handouts. I think it was like, I don't know, 50 pages or something like that, whatever it was. So this is just from that.
Okay. I'm sorry that he's not here. I wish he was, to be able to answer the questions himself. But, the part where he spoke to the board rubber stamping decisions, you live in the same household. You know how much preparation it takes to prepare for these meetings. And I wish he were here so I could ask him why he felt that way.
Well,
and that board members were unprepared.
Let me answer the rubber stamp part first. That's a colloquialism that was thrown out like not a big deal. It just seems like things are rushed through, and that because there was, I don't know, 700 unanimous votes in a row, that maybe it was just not really like not wanting to disagree. I don't really know that, but I don't think rubber stamp had a legal meaning until he got a level 1 letter written back where it was very clear that the author of the level 1 response letter, which after denying him a conversation, that was clearly a trigger word. So that was interesting, because then you say, oh wait, rubber stamp has a legal meaning, and then it means that if you are rubber stamping a committee, basically, then they need to have open meetings under the Open Meetings Act. So that's what the only reason that word even really got interesting was because the author of the level 1 letter clearly was defensive on that particular phrase. So if that gives you context, that's why. And so, well, let's see where that goes. So I think there were evidences. I think I discussed them earlier. But the issue was that evidence couldn't be part of this grievance because the district was already trying to say it was untimely. So you can't go and all of a sudden put in information back to 2016 when the board was absolutely asking questions like, what's the name of this program? That might show unfamiliarity with what they were actually agreeing to. Because under 28.004A, they're required to ensure it reflects the community's values.
Okay, thank you. I just have one last question. Yes, anybody can do research and find information, and people will sometimes look for information that agrees with their values and their beliefs. I truly believe that. Instead of being open and accepting and to maybe what might be truth. But I'd like to know, did you seek any legal advice when the grievance started with his accusations that we were violating Code 28.004 to help interpret curriculum, law?
Well, if you get 10 attorneys in a room, you're going to get at least 8 different answers. And so when you have words as clear as must and, the law is supposed to be written to where the people can interpret it, and not all of it. But what happens is when the lawyers get their hands on it, they reinsert words like you see in level 1. In level 3, there were words that were not correct. They were switched out to convey a different meaning, such as at level 3, the answer was that the board can adopt any curriculum it wants, when the truth is that's not what the law said. The law said any curriculum the board adopts must have these things. So it was a little wordplay. Whoops. It was a little wordplay that even somebody without a law degree could see that they switched the words, it changed the meaning. And so it shouldn't have, I mean, I don't need a law degree to read the Constitution either. And so while attorneys have their role, I don't think that you should have to or need to consult them for every, thing. I don't ask them how to read a nutrition label and that type of thing. It's just, common sense. And this one is so straightforward.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.